Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's demonstration with Livia. It's lovely to have you all with us. I hope you had a great weekend. I'm sure there's plenty of you there who got out to meet some old friends and maybe enjoyed some drinks in the garden this weekend. We'd love to hear how you got on, so feel free to pop in the comments there and let us know what you got up to. Today we've got a really great cooking demonstration for you. One of my favorite dishes as well. I've popped in the link there to view the method and all the ingredients, so make sure you give it a go and let us know how you get on. So we will get started now. First of all, Livia, we'll see how you've been up to. How are things?
Hello. How are you, Kieran?
I'm very well, Livia. Very well. Thank you very much. How was your weekend?
Did you sleep last night? Did you get to sleep last night? Did your children let you sleep last night?
Yes. No. My son was good as gold last night, so I got plenty of sleep. He must know when it's Monday morning, so he does let me sleep on Sunday night.
Very good, well trained.
Yeah, indeed. So, Livia, tell us, what are we cooking up today?
Okay, so today we are going to do one kind of ravioli. I'm calling it ravioli so that you can understand that we're going to do stuffed pasta. But actually, the kind of ravioli that we are making today, it's called Cannolini. So they are tiny, small, quite small. That's the way I'm going to do them. Obviously, you can do different shapes of ravioli. I will show you a few different shapes you could do. But the way I'm going to do them is using a pasta cutter, very small, tiny, that should be 3 centimeters diameter. So very small, 30 millimeters actually. It's typical from Parma, this pasta. This pasta was invented, they started making it in the 13th century actually, and just in the 15th century it went to Parma. It was made in Parma they talking about this also. Well, obviously Artusi, which is the foodie person that wrote the famous book about food that actually I show you another time. Actually, I've shown you previously. He has done a collection of all the traditional dishes from the past, okay, from its age, which was 1800. And in one of these pasta is Cannolini, okay. So it's a stuffed pasta. In this case, I decided to do it colored. So it's also a way to show you a colored pasta made with beetroot, in this case. And it's making it slightly different from usual. So this is not a traditional way to do this ravioli, but it's for you to experience something new. Okay. So I could start if you want, Kieran, if you don't have anything to add to this. With the dough.
That'd be great, Livia, if you want to get going. I'll just say a couple of quick hellos actually while you're getting started. So we've got Jane with us this morning. Hi, Jane. Hi, Anne. We've got Anton as well, Mark and Lorna. Hope you're all well, had a great weekend, and looking forward to today's demonstration.
Yeah, that's very exciting. Okay, so I'm going to use an amount of beetroot, which is about, for let's say 2 eggs, is about 70 grams. So let's say 30 grams each egg you will use. So the fact that we are using a vegetable makes the consistency of the pasta very different. So it will make it for sure a little bit more chewy, unfortunately, when you cook it, if you make it too soft. So egg is very important. So the humidity of the dough, we will obtain it even just using the beetroot, so the vegetable that we are using to color the pasta. But what we need is consistency, and the consistency of the dough is given by the fact that we use egg with this flour. I'm going to use the traditional flour that we use in Emilia-Romagna, which is double zero tender grain. And in this case, I'm using, as I showed you before, this pasta premium package, which is from a mill near here, Spadoni. This is used by all the grains that I film usually, and it is a mixture of durum wheat and tender grain. So it's just really a very small amount of durum wheat that will give the pasta a rough surface and a bit more consistency. So the color of the flour is, as usual, the normal very white color, and the flour is milled very fine. So the flour is double zero tender grain, but there is a little part of semola flour, which is will give it a slightly more yellow color. okay, but more consistency. And for this amount that we are doing today, okay, actually I'm doing a small dough, so I'm going to do 1 egg, okay, let's say medium. Well, actually, maybe mine is quite small in comparison to yours. 1 egg that I will blend together with about, let's say, 30 grams of beetroot. This will give a bit of color to the dough that we would like it to be quite red, so intense and dark. Obviously, the amount of beetroot that you use will give you a darker color. If you use more, you will obtain a more dark color. But since I'm not making a big dough, balance this amount is quite difficult because I'm just going to use about 130 grams of flour for 30 grams of beetroot and 1 egg. The egg is not big, so it's not, I don't know how big is your medium egg, but this is, I think, a small egg for you. Is because this egg comes from a farm, so it's not, I mean, considered by sizes, like it's just how it comes. So, but it's quite small in comparison to what you would have in UK. Now I'm going to blend it. I use the immersion blender.
Just before you blend that there, can I ask, is the beetroot cooked beforehand or
Thank you. Yes, sure. The beetroot here, unless you produce your own and you have your vegetable garden when you can dig it out and use it, usually beetroot is sold in supermarket always already boiled. We don't consume a lot of beetroot. I think beetroot is very good for health, got a lot of good elements, so you should use it. You can make, don't use it just for color, but use it as an ingredient, and it's perfect, for example, in a salad with boiled potatoes and boiled eggs, for example. But in Italy, it's sold already boiled almost everywhere. Unless you produce your own, you will always find it already boiled in a package. So that's why I have it already boiled. But if you don't have it boiled, boil your own and then peel it and then blend it with the egg. Blending it with the egg is a way to obtain a more intense color and also evenly, so that our dough will be evenly colored the same way, will be very homogeneous. Okay, now I'm going to blend it, just a bit of noise, sorry. We really want to take off all the lumps, otherwise you will find them back in the dough when you roll it. Okay. So blending it together with the egg will make the color to be more homogeneous.
And Livia, I can imagine that with the dough, it can make the mix quite wet at times. Is it just the case, as always, just adding a little more flour?
Yeah, if in case you're not using enough flour because the amount of beetroot, maybe the beetroot was boiled and I don't know, for too long, and then it was very soft. You know, there are many things that might vary the kind of flour that you use. Just add a bit more flour. Obviously, the consistency of the pasta that you will obtain will be always different. If you use more flour in the percentage of, in comparison to the amount of egg that you're using, the consistency of the pasta at the end will be different. Will be, let's say, a little bit more chewy. Okay, so in this case, I'm using, let's say, 130 grams. I keep some flour on the side in case I won't need it, so I don't want to mix it already. It's always better when you make a pasta dough to measure the ingredients, and if you make egg pasta, so yellow pasta, with 1 egg and 100 grams of flour, it should be quite precise. Instead, if you are adding a vegetable like we're doing today to give it a color, and it could be, for example, spinach in case you want to have a green pasta, then the amount of flour that you will need is always changing, varying, depending on the size of your egg, and also on how, appunto, as we were saying, the beetroot has been boiled. Okay, so I'm not sure about the amount of flour you will need. I've wrote you a recipe, but obviously it's an indication. But always better to start with some flour on the side and mix it just if you need it. Because if you make a dough which is too hard and too dry, then you will need to completely change the proportion of egg and flour that you're using, because you need to add another egg. And also you will change the color of your colored pasta, because in that case you will also have a less intense color, because the amount of beetroot will be less in comparison to the flour. So always start with a small amount of flour, keep it on the side, and add it little by little. So the quality...
Just a reminder to everybody that the recipe is in the comments as well. So we certainly hope you give this one a go. I know there's lots of people out there, Livia. Beetroot seems to be an ingredient that a lot of people like. We've even got some people family members are growing it at the moment. We got people who really enjoy eating beetroot. So I think this is definitely one that a lot of folks are going to try out.
Yeah, beetroot in UK, I think, is bigger than what we have in Italy. I mean, the amount that we consume in Italy. So that's good that, I think it's also good for health. So that's good that you're using it more.
Absolutely.
So when you want to make a colored pasta, most of the time colored pasta is not really traditional. Like the only traditional pasta that has to be green since a really long time ago, beginning of this century, of the 19th century, it's the lasagna. Lasagna has always been made with a green pasta, so it's always been made with spinach. So when you make a lasagna with ragu sauce and bechamel, you should always use a green pasta. Then all over around Italy, colored pasta are a modern invention. So that's why, for example, we never feel many granny with pasta grannies that make a colored pasta. And actually there is reason, it messes up a bit the amount of ingredients that you're using, and the result of your pasta making can be a little bit more difficult to be obtained, because the pasta will be soft, the humidity that is released in the dough when the gluten is developing is higher, and then you always need to add a little bit more flour to dry it out a bit more, because it's too humid. So it's not easy to make a colored pasta, and it's not traditional. So that's you need to know it, but we're doing something right now that is not really traditional, but it's nice. It's nice if you have a dinner with your friends, for example, and I'm sure now you're going to have a dinner with your friends in a little while.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. And it's
a long time we don't do it.
It's a very impressive dish, as you said. The color is fantastic. I know whenever I've done this before, my friends have been really, really impressed. As you said, it's not traditional, but it is something a little bit different, which is quite nice to do. So just another couple of quick hellos. Hi, Tanya. Good to have you with us. And Gabe, great to have you with us as well. And I think there, by the Facebook picture, I think that's a lovely picture of one of the villas, is it? Is that maybe Villa Fabri? So that looks really great, reminding us all of lovely Tuscany indeed. So yeah, obviously, if anyone else has any questions, please do send them through. I'm sure Livia will be more than happy to get those answered for you.
Yeah, I like Villa Fabri because there is a pizza oven, so I always make pizza on the last day when I'm there. Okay, so as you know, the pasta dough should be worked for at least, let's say, 10 minutes. The reason why you work it with your palm is to activate the gluten. I always said it, I said it many times. So we want to activate the gluten because we need the gluten network to develop, and then we need the gluten to give elasticity. More than elasticity, we need extensibility of the dough because we're going to roll it with the rolling pin. So we need now to let the dough rest a little bit in a plastic bag for at least half an hour. After half an hour, the gluten network will have developed for sure, and it will be much easier to roll the pasta, and the elasticity will be perfect. So I will keep it here in a plastic bag. Obviously, we won't wait half an hour, but I wanted to show you how to blend how to blend the beetroot with the egg to use it. So same thing you should do with spinach, but I think in the future we will do another recipe with spinach, so you can see how to use spinach in the dough. This is the color that I have obtained, which goes very well with Flavor's apron. But this is quite pink, let's say. When the pasta cooks in boiling water, the color change actually, and usually become a little bit more pink than red. So you should use a lot of beetroot to obtain a dark color. okay, if you want to have a very red color. But then the problem is the amount of egg, because obviously egg is important, as I was saying, to get the right consistency of the pasta when you eat it, because otherwise it will make it too chewy if it's just water and 00 flour. Okay. Okay, so now I'll leave it here on the side and we will prepare the stuffing. Okay. So the stuffing of this pasta, again, is a modern invention, let's say. Actually, it's my invention because it's not written in any pasta grani book about traditional recipes. So, and it's not part of any tradition. So this stuffing is...
Livia, how did you come up with this mix? How did you come up with this mix for the stuffing?
Allora, I think potatoes go very well with beetroot. So I have this idea to make what we, as a stuffing, to make what we usually do to prepare tortelli. We call them tortelli with potatoes. Okay, so tortelli stuffed with potatoes are typical from the hilly part of Tuscany that divide Emilia-Romagna and Tuscany. So there is an area called Mugello where they do race competition. I think I think everyone heard it for that reason. Yeah, that place is very famous for tortelli di patate, potatoes tortelli. They call them tortelli and not ravioli. Okay. So the stuffing is based on boiled potatoes. I got the ingredients here. Okay, so it's used based on boiled potatoes here, and garlic and parsley. Okay, and then obviously some cheese and some beetroot we will add to this mixture to give it a bit of color. So now I'm going back here and I'm going to show you how to do the stuffing. The potatoes have been boiling already, and they are I boiled them with the skin on, okay, for about 30 minutes until they're quite soft. You should boil them right before using them because they have to be sticking well. So the starch that they release after just when they're hot is very different from what they release when they are cooling down. So you should use them also when you make gnocchi. That's the same thing. You should always use the potatoes to make gnocchi when they are still hot. As soon as you boil them, that's when you have to use the potato rice. Okay, because
Livia, can I ask, with the potatoes, is it better to boil them with their skin on so they don't take on too much water?
Yes, that's something I always suggest. You should always boil them with the skin on. If you want to boil them without the skin, because you are maybe in a rush and you don't have half an hour to wait to boil the potatoes, you could peel them, cut them into cubes, okay, and boil them in already boiling and salted water. That way, the cubes of potato will absorb a little bit less water because there is salt, and also because the water is already boiling. So if you are in a rush, boiling salted water, boil the potatoes already peeled in small cubes, and that will make them cook a bit faster. If you got time, about half an hour, even 35 minutes, obviously it will depend on the size of your potato. Okay, so if you boil them all the same size, it will be obviously much easier. And with the skin on, that protect them from absorbing too much water. If you boil the potatoes for gnocchi, I always suggest you to boil them with the skin on, because too much water in the potato will make them require more flour in the dough, and then your gnocchi will be very floury. Don't know why I'm talking about gnocchi, Kieran. Talking too much. That's the problem.
Back to the stuffing. Back to your stuffing.
Sorry. I don't know. Sometimes I cannot stop my brain from talking about giving. Now I concentrate on this recipe. We're preparing the stuffing. Okay, for these ravioli. Okay, so I'm going to mash these 3 potatoes in here. Okay, just simply like this. Okay. And we will color these potatoes adding some beetroot. When you make tortelli di patate, usually, you don't use beetroot, but you add a little bit of tomato to color the stuffing for i tortelli di patate. So slightly different, but same concept. There is something that gives color to the stuffing of a potato. Tortelli. Okay, so I'm turning on the
Livia, I was reading through the recipe and I noticed that there's no meat, there's no fish. It's obviously there is some cheese, but it's very close to being a vegetarian dish. So I wonder, with the sauce of the gorgonzola and the stuffing of the Parmigiano, is there anything we could substitute to make this a kind of fully vegetarian dish?
Yeah, sure. The idea was that a sauce with cheese like gorgonzola, okay, could be good, I think, with potato. And that's, if you think about that, we always go back thinking about the traditional recipes. So a traditional recipe is gnocchi with gorgonzola, for example. So the flavors that go well together are always the same. But even just with tomato sauce, it could be good to serve these ravioli with tomato sauce, for example. But I was wondering, do you think that vegetarians don't eat cheese? Because that's a bit worrying for my lessons, because I always saw the vegetarian eat cheese. Meanwhile, I'm going to, sorry, Kiran, so while we're talking, I will keep going. So I'm going to cut quite small garlic, soften it in olive oil, add the potatoes and then the parsley. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do now while we're talking. Yeah, so what do you think? Do you think vegetarian eat cheese? What do our guests think? Because that's something I would like to know. Maybe I'm curious to know it. Well, is there any vegetarian that is following us now? Maybe following.
Maybe obviously, I know a lot of the guests that join us on the classes that enjoy a wide range of different recipes, and I know the vegetarian classes that you do are quite popular. And you've got some new recipes for April as well, Livia. And pardon my pronunciation, I think one of them is the rotolo alla fragole e mascarpone. That sounds wonderful.
See, there is always cheese also there. Thank you, Kiran, that you remind me. That maybe, I don't know if it's right. But yeah, that's un rotolo. It's spring, so we tend to base a lot of, here is already the season for strawberries. So there are a lot of things done with strawberries. And I thought to do this dessert, which is nice because a rotolo is like a roll. So it's a very thin layer of a sponge, okay, that we will flavor with a sauce made with strawberries and blend, just strawberries that cooks with just some sugar, and then we blend them, okay, like a strawberry jam, let's say, but made straight before. And then I'm going to use it to color the sponge that we cook. As I was saying, a very, very thin layer of sponge cooked very fast, high temperature in the oven. Then we will soften it with this strawberry sauce, and then stuff it with mascarpone, and then roll it, and you can keep it in the fridge. Actually, I got mine still here, because you can actually freeze it and use it as if it was a semifreddo. So you can keep it in the freezer, and then you can just serve it sliced and, a little bit warmer and softer. You have to cool it down a little bit, and then you can serve it as a semifreddo with the strawberry sauce. So that's a spring recipe for as a dessert. So I think it's, we always have to change the recipe up to the time of the year, I think, and adapt.
Absolutely,
can you find strawberries there? Can you find strawberries already there?
You can indeed. Yeah, you can indeed. Obviously, as it goes a bit more into the summer, they're more in season, but yeah, you can always still find them around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I never know, I'm not sure how is your season going, because our season depends also a lot on temperature. So it's like if it's warmer, then we got things earlier. I can't wait for apricots to come out. And actually, as I was saying last time, we've been told that we won't have a lot of apricots because it's been warm and cold all of a sudden. So the flowers have been killed, and my area is famous to produce a lot of strawberries. A lot of apricots, but not this year, maybe. So this is salt, because the potatoes don't have any salt.
So you've mixed the potatoes, and is that some parsley and salt you've put in there, Livia?
Parsley, salt, and now pepper. Okay, and then I'm just, let's say, flavoring the mashed potatoes with the garlic flavor. So I've warmed the oil, add small pieces of garlic. In this case, you can add as much as you like, and because depending on how much you like garlic, okay. Then some parsley, and I'm flavoring the mashed potatoes with just with the garlic flavor, and I'm adding now a bit of beetroot that I've blended before, okay, to color also the stuffing.
So
as you can see, it's very dark.
Yeah.
And we are giving it, like, let's say again, like something similar to a pink color.
Yeah.
You can choose to add more.
The more beetroot, the deeper the color. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's always, yeah. And in this case, you can add more here in the stuffing. Obviously, you have to dry it out a little bit, cooking it a little bit longer, because that's the only negative part of using a vegetable is the humidity that it releases while it's cooking or while it's in the mixture, you know, like, so
Yeah.
a vegetable will release its water little by little. So we will need to use maybe a bit more Parmigiano to soak up the humidity, but if you want to obtain a darker color, you can just add a little bit more beetroot, and that will make it darker. But we have to remember that we've made the dough, which is already colored, and you won't be able to see much the color of the stuffing. Okay. But actually, Kieran, you can also make this stuffing with a not colored pasta. So just a yellow, dark, intense red color stuffing would make it also nice. Actually, we have Phil McGrani that was doing this in the hills of Emilia Romagna. So she has made a little mini ravioli, let's say, stuffed with beetroot, and she didn't use any beetroot in the dough. That's because really it's very difficult to make a dough without using enough egg, because it would make the dough, let's say, more chewy. You risk to make it a bit chewy when you boil it. Instead, if you use big amount of egg, and in comparison to the flour that you're using, the pasta will be harder maybe to roll, but better consistency. Now I'm adding some Parmigiano. So this is just really Parmigiano. Okay, I turn it off. Okay, and I mix it in. I'm just doing it here so you can see it. You can do this in a bowl. Don't need to cook the Parmigiano. The Parmigiano is added to give more flavor, Kieran, and also to give it, you know, make it harder to be able then to be contained better by the pasta.
Yeah.
Okay. I will wait a few minutes before I add the extra Parmigiano, because I don't want to make it too, let's say, I would like it to cool down a little bit, because in this case it's melting already. Instead, I'm using the Parmigiano to make it more compact instead of, you know, I would not like the stuffing to melt. So I move it here. If you are vegetarian, and I don't know if you got any reply by our guests. You know,
yeah, so I think there's lots of alternatives. There's lots of vegetarian cheeses as well that guests can use instead of the likes of gorgonzola and Parmigiano. So there's plenty of options out there.
But as I was saying, you could just use, for example, breadcrumbs in this mixture to make it more compact. Actually, I think in this case I'm adding a bit of breadcrumbs, because I think it would make them more compact. Okay. I mean, before using a stuffing like this, you should always wait a little bit for it to cool down. Well, obviously, for this purpose of doing a live lesson, I'm going to use it warm. But if you got time, you should cool it down a little bit before using it as a stuffing. I'm mixing a little bit of breadcrumbs that will actually cool down the temperature, make it more compact. Breadcrumbs are better than adding flour. Flour doesn't have any flavor. Breadcrumbs can be a good ingredient to be added to a stuffing. So
yeah, I wonder if anyone that's watching today was cooking for any friends at the weekend. I wonder if anyone got up to anything, met some friends, or got out and about. Please let us know.
So can you invite friends at home already or not?
Yeah, I know down in England at the moment, you know, there's guests that people that are able to meet up outside at the moment. So I think there was probably plenty of people that had some friends over, or maybe just caught up with people outside in some of the parks. So I think things are opening up a wee bit.
Yeah, so you could make this pasta for your friends and invite them at the park. And boil the pasta and bring it there. Okay, I'm going to put these in the fridge just because then I'm going to roll the pasta and get ready to stuff them. I would like it to be a little bit cooler, so I put it in the fridge because I need it colder faster. So that's the only reason why I put it here. You should not do it. You don't need to do it. You should just wait a little bit. Okay, and I'm getting ready to roll the pasta. Okay. Actually, I have already rolled it. Kieran, I've done it before because otherwise a lot of pressure for this live. Again, as usual, I've left it on a plastic film. I don't know how to call it. This is another trick I've learned from grannies, I always say. So if you roll it ahead and you want to stuff a pasta, you cannot have a pasta that is too dry, because then the pasta will not stick. You know, your ravioli will not stick at all. So you need a soft dough. The dough has to still be quite soft. Doesn't have to be dry. And in UK, it doesn't happen often because it's always wet, the weather, so I think it's more humid than here. So you can make ravioli any time of the year, I think. And here, there are certain times in summer where it's very hot, and really making stuffed pasta is impossible because the dough dry out. So grannies have discovered this way. Every granny that I've filmed with pasta grannies, they have this plastic film, quite thick, that keeps the dough soft. When you make a pasta with vegetables, like we have done with beetroot, another problem that you could go through is that it's very soft. Okay, so for example, my dough right now is that I'm discovering now that it's very soft, and actually I have the opposite problem. Okay, maybe that's a revenge because I said that in UK always rain and you have a lot of humidity, but right now my dough is very sticky. It's quite sticky. Okay, so I got it here. Okay, so as you can see, this dough is very soft, and the consistency is really different from when you make a pasta just with eggs and flour. And as you can see, the shape is difficult to have it very round because it's soft. It's quite soft, even if I really use the ingredients that I've just shown you. So not a big amount of egg to make it too soft. But the egg is important for these reasons. The egg will give a consistency to your dough. So when you make pasta with egg and you find it difficult to roll it because it's very compact, and then you start sweating and you feel like you've been to the gym, actually you have to be happy because the quality of your pasta will be much better than if the dough is too soft. When the dough is soft and is easy to roll it, it's not really good quality of pasta. It would make it a bit chewy. So, and that's what happens when you use a vegetable, that will release humidity while it is in a dough. So I've made this dough a few hours ago, and then I've just rolled it before we started, and it's very humid, more than what I expected, because humidity is coming out from the vegetable. Anyway, for a stuffed pasta, it will make it easier for it to stuff it and to seal it, so that's fine. Okay, I'm going to cut some strips. Okay, così. So you see the thickness of the dough is this, very soft. Sorry, very thin. Yeah. Soft also, unfortunately, but very thin. Okay, it needs to be very thin because if it's thick, then when you stuff it and seal it, it's 2 layers of pasta on top of each other that will make the dough too thick, let's say. When it boils, really can risk to have it quite chewy. So now I'm taking back the stuffing and I'm going to place some on the dough. And I'm going to use these to cut the shape of the pasta that we are making, which, as I said, are called cannolini. Okay.
Great.
In this case, I didn't write it in the recipe because I thought, I mean, it's just an extra information that I'm giving you now. This is a pasta traditional from Piacenza and Parma. I guess if some of you have been to Parma ever in your life, do we know that some of our guests have been to Parma? It's a beautiful city. And they usually make this yellow, so just egg pasta, round. Annolini come from the Latin annulus, which means ring. So actually, got the shape of a ring. And it's so small that could look like a ring that you can have on in your finger. But they usually stuffed with meat. Just to tell you this name of pasta, when you hear this name of the pasta in Italy, it is always stuffed with meat, okay, with a stew that you make the days before and then you blend it together with meat and Parmigiano, and it's served boiled, a little bit like tortellini. Okay, for the one, let's say the same concept is always served with stock, with broth. Sorry. Okay, so the name of this pasta.
How long do you put the mix in the fridge for?
I was trying to take some time, come si dice, gain some time because I think it's very hot, so I want to cool it down. I mean, if you should not do this. I mean, you don't need to keep it in the fridge, but you should wait a little bit before using it, because if it's hot and the dough is soft, you can end up to have a disaster, you know, because the dough is soft. When you cut this pasta, it can melt, let's say. So that's why I was waiting a little bit, but now we are ready. So let's say 15 minutes, you know, just cool it down a little bit if it was boiling hot. But I think by the time you prepare the stuffing and let it cool down, by the time you roll the pasta, I think the stuffing should be colder.
Yes, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So it's not a problem, it's just there. Okay, so now I'm going to make them quite small, okay, because I think that this is the size of the cannolini. So I'm going to use a teaspoon, okay, to give them, so this amount, let's say. Aspetta, I'm going to show you. I leave some space in between them, which, since this pasta is very soft, can be re-rolled. Instead, if you have a pasta which is just egg, like we were saying, more difficult to re-roll it. It won't be easy. Instead, this softer dough is easy to be re-rolled because it's soft. Okay. So if you got any bits that are left over when we cut the pasta, you can re-roll it. That's because there's the vegetable. Okay. So I'm going to fold over the rest of the dough, press in between them, and cut it with this pasta cutter.
And you mentioned, Livia, as well, with ravioli. Yeah. There's lots of different shapes. What's your favorite shape for doing ravioli?
Since I come from where tortellini are, actually in my region, in my part of the region, there are cappelletti more than tortellini. I love the shape of a little hat. This is the one that I like more. But I find these annolini very elegant. I think they are very elegant because they are very small and different from usual. Okay, so I'm going to press with my fingers in between each raviolo, let's say, each annolino. Okay, just to make sure that there is no air in it. Air. Okay. You divide them and you press a little bit, also to take air out, but also to seal the sides. You can do this shape. You don't have to buy this pasta cutter to obtain this shape, but you can just use the bottom of a small, for example, of a small glass. If you have a small limoncello glass, you know, yes. Everyone have at home, especially if you come with flavors a few times, then you have. Okay, you can just use it to close it. Again, you don't need to buy anything. I try to teach you things that you can do at home without having to buy special tools. But if you want to buy a pasta cutter, a pasta cutter do something different from just cutting the pasta. He also seals the pasta, which is very important. So it's actually the same concept of the pasta cutter that I've used the last time for the pappardelle, if you remember. So this kind of, come si dice, Kieran? How do you call it?
Like a jagged edge.
Yeah. So. These also seal the pasta while you cut it. And that's the same that we got here. You know, this kind of jagged edge. Okay, so he just, he doesn't just cut it, he also seal it. But you can get the same with your limoncello or even coffee cup. You know, like even, it should be, if you want to make it properly, like they usually do in Parma, it should be 30 millimeters. Okay, so quite similar. I will show you also do it with a cup, just to show you that you can do it even without having special tools. So with a cup, like this, okay, and this is with the pasta cutter, which is a bit smaller. I find this an elegant pasta, maybe because it's tiny, small, and I find it more elegant. My cat here today is going crazy because she's very hungry. I can see she's trying to jump everywhere because she can smell. Maybe she likes potatoes.
I think we're all very hungry now watching you, Livia, as well. They look amazing.
Oh, yeah. Well,
the color again, the color is just really, really good.
It's nice because it's different from usual. And so Cannolini is just the name of the shape. But if you say, oh, I've been eating cannolini this, I don't know, let's say this week, then if you tell it to someone from Parma, it would expect a different thing. So cannolini reminds you of the shape, but not of the stuffing, right? So remember that in Italy, we are very traditional and very close-minded. So we always, we won't change much of the recipes. So I didn't call these cannolini because they are not with the proper stuffing and they are not served with the stock, so I cannot call them cannolini. That's something I'm happy to explain to our guests, because you have a lot of traditions from different countries in UK. Instead, in Italy, we are all, I think, very close-minded and very worried to call the things with the right name, you know, when they are. Okay, so this is what I've done. Okay, quite stuffed, quite very stuffed. Sealed well because I had the pasta, you know, I think mainly because I had the pasta cutter. But you see this one, a little bit bigger. I've done it with simply with a coffee cup, a little bit bigger, but sealed well too. So you can do it with a limoncello glass.
And they're ready then just to be boiled.
Yeah, I'm going to boil them. I'm going to do a portion. I'm going to boil them, and I'm going to melt while I boil them a little bit of gorgonzola, which I think goes well with beetroot and also mainly with potatoes. Okay, so I'm just going to melt the gorgonzola and adding a little bit of milk if it's needed. Sorry, let me take another pen. Okay. Okay, so a bit of gorgonzola. In this case, I'm using a gorgonzola which is picante. Okay, so it's a, let's say, quite strong gorgonzola. I'm adding a bit of cream, okay, or otherwise even milk if you don't have cream, to dilute it and to melt it better, while the cannolini are cooking in the water. While boiling, I add salt in the water. Usual, okay, and when it goes back to boil, okay, I'm going to add.
And you can use some butter to help melt the gorgonzola as well, Livia. Is that correct?
Sure. Yeah, I'm just trying not to make it too heavy, but yeah, sure. The butter is perfect. Even just butter and gorgonzola. If you have a soft gorgonzola and not too hard, you know, not too seasoned. Because my gorgonzola here is called gorgonzola piccante, so it's a bit, let's say, strong in terms of flavor. We say piccante, but actually there's no chili in it. It's just stronger flavor and more solid because it's matured a little bit longer. So to cook with it is a bit more difficult because you need, let's say, to soften it, to melt it a bit longer. And to melt it, you need either butter, or cream, or even just milk. But if you are vegetarian and you don't eat cheeses, which is something that I didn't know. Now, Kieran, what should I do now? Should I change the recipes? Because in my recipes, there is...
as I said, there's plenty of there is plenty of substitutes there, vegetarian cheeses. So no, it's absolutely fine.
Because this Sunday I'm making the la focaccia di Recco, which is a focaccia with stuffed with cheese inside. So there is cheese also in the focaccia. So I don't know.
It's much better at these days, Livia. There's lots of substitutes for things like this. So and they're very widely available. So I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine.
Okay. And I'm making also il tortino di melanzane, and nel tortino di melanzane there is just aubergine actually and breadcrumbs, so that's maybe a real vegetarian. But I always saw that vegan don't eat cheese, but yeah, about cheeses and vegetarian I was not sure that
that class, that's on Sunday, isn't it, Lydia? That's your next class on Sunday at 12?
It's for this Sunday, and then the next Sunday there will be the normal Sunday lunch. Okay, so as you can see, the cheese is already
ready to dish
melted,
up. It looks like.
And really, let's say 5 minutes, and they are cooked. So now just a few minutes. As you can see, the color is changing a little bit and is becoming a bit more pink. Okay, but that depends on the amount of beetroots that you use. You should experience. I think these recipes are good for you to try and experience your pasta making with colored pasta. Okay. You see, they also release color in the water. So they were already quite colored. So they become a little bit pink, but it's a nice pink that, we always have to think about our serving these dishes, and most of the time, it's important also the way these dishes looks, end up to look. It's not just the ingredients that you use. That's more about the traditional recipes. Here we are talking about modern recipes, so they can be, it is also important the way you serve them.
Yeah, well, no, they certainly look great already, Livia.
Yeah, I'm just serving them now. I was trying to wait until they reduce a little bit, so I'll go a little bit in an higher flame.
Just to make that sauce a little bit thicker, I take it.
Yeah. Just a little, because I've maybe used too much cream. I could have just waited a little bit longer, taking a little bit longer to make the sauce, and just melt the gorgonzola that usually melt properly, really. Okay. There was already salt and pepper in the stuffing, salt in the water. So if you want, you can add some pepper if you're on top, but it's ready now. Okay. So I'm going to dish it. Okay. Okay. I've just done a little, then I will finish with the rest. Ecco qua. Okay. Ready. So I can add a bit of color. Some mint. Okay.
Wow. That looks absolutely delicious, Livia. Once again, you've succeeded in making me feel very hungry. That looks beautiful.
It's not difficult, as you can see. Also because the dough is quite soft, so easy to roll if you think could be the problem. And re-roll the bits that you have to cut if you have the pasta cutter. Very easy to handle it, as you can see, and quite soft. So I hope you will enjoy them.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful, Livia. That looks absolutely beautiful. I'm sure one that a lot of the guests are going to give a try. Really want to thank everybody for taking part today. I'll pop in the recipe again, so please feel free to try that out. Send us on your pictures. I'm sure Livia would love to see you give that a try as well.
That's what I would like to see. I would be happy if someone tried to do that. done last week.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Livia, thank you so much for that. You have a great week, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.